Time to party. Saturday night session. 2 a.m. over here. I think it's still early in Europe. Let me jump right into it. We did a little, got some cash today. I'll show that on stream to open it. Alright chat, so one client completed a final little bug milestone that I fixed, so that's good. You guys have seen me complete the bugs over the last few days. So right now we're still at 5 orders. And we've got 1,000 extra in the bank, so I added that to the revenue counter already. You guys know what the revenue counter is, how we make our money. And if you don't know, you let me know. And then I'll get you tapped in. Okay, I'm fully working right now, chat, because I basically have a delivery in about 13 hours. And if I'll be exact about the time, it's actually 12 hours and 50 minutes. So as I'm on stream with you guys right now, I'm just running 2 agents and I'm just focused on one main project actually. So I thought I'd just go live, see who pops in. It's still early out in Europe. We had a good long stream yesterday. It did make me very tired, but we're fully recharged now. Whoever's in the chat, just know today it's going to be a focus session. That's why I put it in the title as well. We need to lock in and we need to deliver a client. And once we get this to 4 orders, then we're on schedule again for a day. And then we got to go all back into it. Let me get some music going. Loop that stuff. Pump it up here and let me get focus chat. Alright. My Replit is working for my client. I can't show that on the stream today. So I'm just basically chilling here. I'll see who pops in. And we'll take it step by step. I've got 150 tokens to burn in 10 hours. And then I basically want the project to be done. I think we've got potential to get it done. And then we should be on time. So yeah, chat, just working out here. Let me check the back end stream. Ooh, that's looking very, very weird. Give me a second, chat. Oh, let me close this. OBS. It's camera 2. And then medium. Wide. Oh, that's crazy that it's stretched out like that, chat, but all good. Alright, let me just fix the camera, chat, of the setup. You guys know, mission control, where we run the most shit. Alright, let me put them smokes away so we got a cleaner view. We got that lights remote. Alright, we should be good. Let me log back in, chat. I'm focused on work right now, so my screen's gonna stay what my screen's gonna stay at. I'm just keeping the clock on to see the time. I'm working for a client right now in London, so I've got to get that done before a certain time, but all good, we're all on schedule. Whoever pops in the chat, let me know. Focus work today for me. Working on the blog, so let me check the other stuff. Got the CMS, that's fixed kinda. remove the events and webinars page view from the admin dashboard for now. You can just remove the views for now, and we'll see what we do with the data later. You can put emails, move it to the top in the main section. You can move it right below site settings. Alright chat, I'm sorry if I'm quiet today, I'm locked in, you guys know it. I might actually put some YouTube content on today chat. I've got to stay focused on the project, so let me just look at some YouTube content and I'll put something on. Let's watch Whiskey Leaf, man, he just did a smoke session, so let's... Yo Omer, I'm just in focus mode right now, but I read your comment. Be sure to join the streams. We've got something planned for people who don't have experience, but the first part to do is join the Discord and join the stream. Today I'm in focus mode because I'm building a website for a client that I can't share, but shout out to everybody in the chat. I hope you guys all locked in on a Saturday night. It's 2 a.m. out here, and let's go get that money. We made easy 1,000 today, so let's continue on. So Ahmed, subscribe, like, and follow us soon in the Discord. I'll update you and we'll get things done, man.
So imagine waking up and your AI has already given you the trending topics in your niche for the day, checked your emails, found good opportunities, and sent everything straight to your phone with a daily summary every day right when you wake up. And this is not some futuristic idea. You can do this right now with OpenClaw. In this video, I'll walk you through how to use OpenClaw step by step. First, we will implement and install OpenClaw with a one-click deployer. Then we will connect OpenClaw to Telegram so you can send commands any time of the day right from your phone. Then I'll explain the 3 most important things about OpenClaw, like skills, cron jobs, and models. There's also a really cool AI tool that can easily integrate any app or CMS that you can use directly with OpenClaw. I'm going to keep this tutorial very simple because once you understand how to utilize these features, you can pretty much automate anything. So let's get started. Now, before we go on any further, there are some really important things that I need to talk about that most beginners typically mess up. And the reason is simple. If your computer turns off, goes to sleep, or disconnects from the internet, OpenClaw stops running. But there's something more important to know about OpenClaw is OpenClaw is open source and it's very experimental. OpenClaw can literally delete your files, install malware, or just mess with your computer if it starts to malfunction. And there's been several cases of users downloading malware without them even knowing it. So to be safe when using OpenClaw, use a VPS. You want to use a VPS, which is basically a cloud computer that stays online all the time. This is critical because OpenClaw relies on things like cron jobs and automations that need to run even when you're not there. OpenClaw also won't have access to your computer, which limits your liability. Once you install OpenClaw on a VPS, it'll be working for you 24/7. So it'll be running tasks, using workflows, or just sending you daily reminders. So to get started, we'll be installing OpenClaw using a one-click deployer from Hostinger. It's the easiest, the fastest, and cheapest way to install OpenClaw. Now there is a link in the video description. This will take you to Hostinger to install OpenClaw on a VPS. So once you click on that link in the video description, it'll take you to Hostinger's website in order to install OpenClaw. So when you get to this page, you'll click on Get Started. Now their plans and their pages typically change over time, so you'll just want to make sure that you select the OpenClaw and then select an OpenClaw plan. Now here we have 2 plans. We have the managed and we have the self-managed. I recommend selecting the managed. This will make it so you can deploy OpenClaw using their one-click deployer. So under the managed OpenClaw, you'll click on choose plan. The next page is the cart page. Now you want to adjust the period. So on the period selection, you can select 1 month, 12 months, or 24 months. I recommend doing the 12 months. This will grant you a large discount, and there is also a 30-day money-back guarantee for any reason whatsoever. Now there's one box I want you to uncheck, and this is the ready to use AI. Now me and my developers have used OpenClaw with many different models, and we've discovered that when you combine Nexus with other AIs, it typically conflicts. So I do recommend to take that off. I'll explain more about this later in the video. Now on the right side, we have a coupon code. We have a discount code that will give you a discount on your OpenClaw hosting. If you enter the coupon code Daryl10 and click on apply, you'll get an additional 10% off any of the plans at Hostinger. So I'll click on apply, and then you'll see you'll just pay $100 for the entire year to run OpenClaw. So go ahead and click on continue. On the next page, you'll register with Hostinger and make an account. So you'll put your email and a password, and then you'll click on register. Now I already have an account, so I'll log in. On the next page, you'll enter in your billing information. So you'll put in your first name, your last name, and then your address. Then you'll click on continue. On the next section, you'll input your credit card info, and then you'll submit a payment, and then you'll be redirected to deploy OpenClaw. So I'll put in my credit card information, and then I'll submit the payment. Cool. On the next page, you'll click on get started. All right, cool. Now on the next page, we're going to configure the API. Now this right here is your OpenClaw API token. You can reveal this and then copy and paste it somewhere safe. You can always access this later in the Hostinger dashboard, so don't worry about it too much. Now we do need to add an API key in order to configure OpenClaw. There's a variety of different APIs you can add. You can add Anthropic, OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, and also Gemini. I'm going to add the Gemini API, so I'm going to go to Google AI Studio. Now this is the Google AI Studio, so you'll go ahead and make a free account, and then you can access the Google Gemini API for free. Here on the bottom left, you'll see Get API Key. And here's a list of APIs. Now at the top right, I'll click on Create API Key, and then I'll give my API key a name, so I'll put OpenClaw, and then I'll click on Create Key. Okay, so here is my API. So on the right side, I'll just click on Copy API Key and go back to Hostinger. And then I'll paste in the Gemini API key. Now another key you can add is Anthropic, and this is actually native to Claude. Now if you want to use the Claude API, all you got to do is go to claude.ai, make sure you make an account, go to the bottom right, and under Learn More, you'll click on API Console. This will bring you to the platform where you can now access the API. Now in order to get your API key, here at the bottom you'll see API keys. You'll click on API keys, and then just click on Create Key. And for the key, I'll put OpenClaw, click on add, and then you'll copy this, and then you can paste this over at Hostinger. So under the Anthropic API, I'll just go ahead and right click and paste it. You can also do this for OpenAI and X as well, but I'm not gonna go through and add too many of these because obviously, one is enough. So once you add in your API key for any model you wanna use, you'll scroll to the bottom and click on deploy. Okay, so as of right now, your VPS is being deployed. Now this process might take about 5 minutes. Now once your VPS is done setting up, to access OpenClaw, you'll click on Open. And this is where you'll paste your OpenClaw Gateway token. Now in case you forgot it or you misplaced it, you can always access it right here by clicking on Gateway Token, going back to OpenClaw, and then paste it. Then you'll click on Login. And just like that, we're now logged into OpenClaw. Now there are some instances where the actual server gets stuck. Let me go back over here to the Docker Manager really quick. Now, just in case you're at a loading screen where it was frozen, all you got to do is go to these 3 dots right here and click on Restart, and then try to re-log in again. That is actually a common error that I've seen with Hostinger servers, so just note sometimes that happens. So now we're at OpenClaw. Now the very first thing I want to show you all is first how to change your model. On the left side, let's click on Agents. Here you'll have an overview of your agents. Now typically this is the model that OpenClaw is going to use. So right here under primary model, if we click on this, we can select a variety of models. Now just remember that you must have the API added in order to use this specific model. So for example, we use the Gemini model. So I'm going to select the Gemini 3.1 and then click on save. Cool. Once that's done, let's go back to the chat, and then we'll go ahead and type a message. And then we got a response. So now we know that the API is connected with OpenClaw. And here you'll get confirmation, and it lets you know which exact model you're using when you're using OpenClaw. So as of right now, OpenClaw is now connected and ready to go. Now, if you're brand new to OpenClaw, there are some things that I want to just go over really quick. The left tab over here under agents, again, this is where you can go ahead and switch between any model. I personally think Claude is really good when it comes to more like developer type work. Gemini is okay for I guess the average person. ChatGPT, I don't think is that great at all, to be honest. And that is pretty much it on how to install OpenClaw. Next, let's set up Telegram so we can message our bot from any location. So here I'll type in let's set up Telegram. Now it's giving us instructions on how to set up BotFather. Now, real quick, depending on the AI model that you're using, you could get different responses. So that's just something to consider. Now, I know I'm showing you the step-by-step video, but the AI may respond different just because, you know, it's AI. So I'll go ahead and open up my Telegram. So this is the BotFather user for Telegram, and this essentially is where you can create new bots. So here I'll put new bot. Now, obviously you can see I've made tons of bots before. Here I'll go ahead and give my bot a name. Next, it'll ask us to create a username. So I'll just put Daryl Wilson _ bot. Cool. So now we have the API token. So I'll go ahead and just copy this and then let them know this is the API token. Okay, there's the API token. I'll go ahead and send this message. All right, next, you'll see that OpenClaw might have kicked you out. Now, this is a very common thing. You're gonna see this a lot. This happens when OpenClaw configures your config file. Anytime OpenClaw adjusts your config file, it will close automatically. OpenClaw may fix that in the future, but that's how it is for right now. So you'll have to reopen OpenClaw. So to do that, I'll just click on Open, and then we'll paste in our gateway token. Then I'll click on Login. Okay, so once we come back, you'll see that it was successfully applied. And again, this happens because whenever there is a configuration change, OpenClaw will reset. So let's go back to our Telegram bot. Next, it'll let us know it's not configured. Now, what I do recommend here is just to copy and paste this entire message and give it to OpenClaw. So I'm gonna copy this, and then we're gonna go back to OpenClaw, and then we're just gonna tell it that this is the response. So I put, this is the response from Telegram, and I just pasted that same message right here. So I'll just go ahead and run this message. And just like that, the bot is now connected. Now, in order to actually test this out, we're just going to write a message. So I'll put hello, and let's see if it responds to me. And just like that, the bot is now connected, and we can send messages directly to OpenClaw from Telegram. So at this point, OpenClaw is now set up and ready to go. So let's now talk about the UI interface and get you comfortable with all the options. Now, the first options here are the top right. Now, this is dark mode, also light mode. This is PC mode. So once you actually download the Claw Hub app, which is currently in beta right now, so it's not the best, you can actually click on system, and then this can actually access your computer, but you must actually go through the process of downloading the app, and I'll definitely save that for another video. Next is the cron jobs, and OpenClaw will periodically message you, letting you know about the cron jobs, and it'll message you right here, letting you know the cron jobs it's running. This other option, this just basically makes it full width, pretty simple. The next is this repair icon. This essentially will just show you the tools it's using. So for example, if I click on this and I run a command, you'll notice I ask it about the weather in Bangkok, and then it lets you know the exact tools that it's using. So essentially what it's doing is just showing you the output of exactly what it's doing in order to fetch the weather in Bangkok. And as you can see, it is 38 degrees Celsius. It's really hot, it's really humid, and it's really hot right now in Thailand. Now, the last option right here is this brain. Now, once you run more complex tasks, you should turn this on, because this is essentially, if you're trying to run really complex tasks, it'll help the AI fetch more information in order to make those tasks run properly. But if you're using OpenClaw for just general things, I recommend to turn this off, because this will save you more credits. Now, we have a lot going on right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and under the message, type in clear. And then I'll type in clear, and this will clear the messages so it's not so messy. Now here on the left side, let's take a look at control. So this is basically the gateway access and all the information such as gateway token, and it's letting you know if the server's up. It also lets you know how much you've spent and how many tokens you have. The next we have is channels. Now, whenever you configure an application like Telegram or WhatsApp, you can get confirmation right here. For example, we connected Telegram earlier, and you'll see that it is configured. And let's say, for example, it was not working properly for you. If there was an issue, you can always go ahead and copy and paste your bot token right here. So here you can actually paste in your bot token. Now, I highly recommend to use an AI like Claude or Gemini. I've used Nexos, which is the hosting your default AI, and it is terrible. It never does anything properly. So for your own good, definitely go with Claude. It's a very clean AI. Now, scrolling down, let's say, for example, you tried to pair the bot earlier and it said there was something wrong with the messages. You can always change this to open, and this will essentially make it so anyone can DM that specific bot. By selecting this to open, it will no longer require a pairing code, but it'll actually be open to the entire public. So that's just something to consider. So I'll change that back to pairing. And there's just a few other options right here for other applications. Next, let's take a look at instances. So these are connected instances. Essentially, this is your VPS. So you'll see we're running Linux, and it's connected to OpenClaw. Next, let's take a look at sessions. Sessions is basically what's been going on OpenClaw. Now there's one very important option here that most people tend to overlook. If we go over here to thinking, you can actually control the thinking. The more thinking, the more credits it will take. So if you're using very basic tasks, you can just put this to low or medium. But if you're creating complex automations, running it to high might make more sense. Next, we have verbose. This essentially will give you updates on the actual AI agents. And then we have reasoning, which essentially is inherent because the AI will technically always reason when it comes to a specific task. And if you select this to stream, this will actually send you all the information to your Telegram and paired devices. Next, let's take a look at usage. This again is just basically how many messages were sent and the thought outputs and just general information and how many credits the API is actually using. Next, we have cron jobs. Now, cron jobs are really cool, and we'll be setting up these a little bit later, and we're gonna have the AI do it for us, so we don't have to manually do it. Next, we have agents. Now, I personally recommend to select Claude. Now, I've been using many different AI agents with my other developers, and we found that Claude is just the most efficient. Nexos is terrible. Do not use Nexos. It is a terrible AI. Also, Gemini is not bad, but I do run into problems with it sometime. If you find yourself running into glitches or weird notices on your OpenClaw UI, it's generally because of the model. So remember, the model is the most important part of OpenClaw. I'll be showing you how to add more models a little bit later, but let's go ahead and go to skills. Skills are essentially things that OpenClaw can do. Now here, I'll go ahead and click on this drop down. Now these are built-in skills, and you can go ahead and activate any one of these skills. Now I'll be showing you a website that actually will sync this up a lot easier, but here you can actually get an idea of skills you can implement with OpenClaw. They have things like Notion, where you can use the Notion API for creating pages. Essentially, OpenClaw will access those websites and do everything, but you first need to connect it. So while they are skills, you still have to connect it to the actual application. So it's not automatic, right? You basically give it a skill and then you connect it. And then from there, it can start performing tasks based off the skills and the API connection. Next, we have nodes, and nodes are essentially connected devices. So scrolling down, if we see devices, we will see that we have paired a bunch of different devices. Earlier, we connected Telegram, and I did connect a few other devices. So if you ever see devices right here that are paired, this is where you can know they're paired. Okay, let's now go over here and click on config. Now, I personally don't like looking at the config with the form, but for example, if you ever want to see what's going on OpenClaw, like your authentication problems or something else, you can go ahead and take a look right here. If you click on updates, it'll let you know about future updates as well, meta, logging, and all these other options. Now, personally, I like to use the code. So for example, I'll click on raw right here, and then I'll expose the code. So let's say, for example, Telegram just wasn't working for you, which is a very common problem with some users. Now, over here under Google, here actually ask it for the OpenClaw JSON code. Now, what you can do is manually enter this in. So for example, you'll go ahead and copy all of this, just enter in your user ID, and then you can paste that here just in case the prompts were not working for you. Now, if you adjust any sort of code from the actual config file, OpenClaw will always reset. That may be fixed in the future, but as of right now, that's how it works. Okay, so that is pretty much it. These other options are just debugging, logs, and also just records of AI agents. So let's now go back to the actual chat. You'll notice right when I came back, we have this cron, and that's because I have this option selected. I do recommend to turn this off because if you don't, you're gonna consistently get cron jobs right here in your channel section. So I do recommend to turn that off. Next, let's talk about models, because this is something beginners don't really understand too well. Not all models are the same. Some are faster and cheaper, some are slower and smarter. So if you're using something like a small task, make sure to use a cheaper model. If you're doing something more complex, you can always switch to a more advanced model. If you're building complex skills like analyzing data, doing research, or making decisions, you're gonna want a stronger model because it can actually think better. The big takeaway here is if the results suck with OpenClaw, it's not necessarily OpenClaw, but it's the model that you're using. So that's something to really consider when you're using OpenClaw. So always match the model with the task and you'll usually get better results. So let me go ahead and show you these models. Now, let's say you wanna add your own AI agent. Let me show you how to do that. Here under the assistant message, I'll just type a message. I want to add ChatGPT AI agents to OpenClaw. Can I give you the API? Here, I'll press enter. Cool. So now you'll see it's basically saying, okay, paste in your API key.
You've probably heard of Claude
I always recommend.
But do you know what it is, how it works, and how it compares to something like Claude Code or just the general Claude chat? Well, if not, watch this video because I'm going to go over all of that and I'm going to give you an in-depth guide and tutorial that covers everything you need to know about CoWork and how you can use it more effectively. So with that said, let's dive in. Okay, so I'm on my computer now and I've got Claude CoWork opened up. Now the first thing you need to understand is how to actually use this. Well, in order for CoWork to work, you need to download the Claude desktop app onto your computer. So go to the Claude website, simply download it. It's available for Mac and for Windows. Now, in order to use Claude CoWork, you do need to have a paid Claude subscription. So either I believe the $20 per month one, which is the Pro plan, or the $100 or $200 per month plan, which is the Claude Max plan. In case you're curious, I'm using the Max plan right now, in case there's some features on here that I have that you don't have access to. Now, as well as that, Claude CoWork only works when your computer is on. So while it is capable of running scheduled tasks and interacting with your files and doing something like web browsing, your laptop or machine or wherever you're running it on has to be on, the Claude desktop app has to be open, and that's how it's going to be able to execute. So unlike something like OpenClaw, if you're running on a virtual private server, it's not going to automatically run in the background. You would need to open it up and just leave the desktop application running. Now, I believe the last thing to mention here is that you can actually use Claude CoWork from mobile if you're on the Pro or the Max plan. So if your computer is open and then you go on your phone, you can trigger Claude CoWork to do something so long as the machine is running. And I believe that's done now through this dispatch feature that they added quite recently. I believe it was a few days ago from the time that I'm filming this video. Okay, so with that in mind, let's start talking about how to use CoWork. Now you'll notice when you download the Claude desktop app and sign into your account and open it up, that you'll have 3 tabs at the top here. You'll have Chat, CoWork, and Code, again, if you're on one of those paid plans. Now, of course, in order to use CoWork, you're going to press on the CoWork tab, and then you should be brought to a page that looks like this. You also can create a new task by just pressing this button up here. And on the left-hand side, you'll see all kinds of things like searching for different tasks, scheduled tasks, ideas, customize, where you can add skills, MCP servers, things like that. And then you'll see various projects and all of the recent conversations that you'll had. Now, to start using this, what you can do is select the model. So in my case, I'm with Opus 4.6, but typically if you want this to be cheaper, then run with Sonnet 4.6. You don't rip through your usage extremely fast, because it is worth noting that Claude CoWork uses significantly more usage than something just like the default chat, because it is doing a lot more operations and interacting with your machine. You also can select a folder to work in, and I'm going to talk in depth about how that works because the permission system behind Claude CoWork is a little bit confusing, and I really want to demystify that for you. Anyways, if we wanted to ask this to do something really basic, you can see that on my desktop, it's a little bit messy, right? We have a bunch of different folders. So one of the capabilities of Claude CoWork is that it can actually interact with your computer, and it can, for example, browse the web. It can organize your file system. It can go and find something for you, and it can use your physical computer. Now, that's the main differentiator between something like Chat, where in Chat, it doesn't have access to your whole file system, right? It can't go through and reorganize your downloads. It can't directly access your browser unless you give it access to that explicitly. And it's a lot more limited, where typically what it's going to be doing is giving you a chat-based response, maybe generating something for you, or interacting with the tools that you connect it to. CoWork has a lot of features that make it more useful because it can actually interact with the machine, and it can kind of take control of almost like your keyboard and mouse and do something as if it was you on your home computer. Again, there's some granularity there, which we'll get into. And then Code, because I think it's important to understand the difference, to be honest, can pretty much do everything that Claude CoWork can do. The real difference between CoWork and Code is who it's designed to be used by. CoWork is really designed for those of you that are a little bit more beginner, that aren't familiar with kind of development tools and working in the command line, and it's meant to be an easier kind of transition into using this like powerful tool. Whereas Claude Code, because typically you are going to run it in the command line, well, also you can run it in the UI here, is a little bit more for advanced users or power users, but to be honest, they can pretty much do the exact same thing. Think of it, if I'm going to ask CoWork to reorganize my files, the way it's going to do that is by running commands. Code can already do that and has already been able to do that for a long time, but it's just been a little bit more intimidating for other people. Now, a few other differences is that Claude CoWork will actually automatically create a virtual machine for you where it will run certain operations, and it just has some kind of default config and setup that Code doesn't have. So ultimately, they are pretty similar, but anyways, let me get into exactly how this works. So for now, just to demonstrate the basic capabilities of this, what I'm going to do is select a project that I want Claude CoWork to have access to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select my desktop here, and I'm just going to go with allow. Now notice that prompt right there, because CoWork will only be able to touch something on your computer that you give it direct access to. So now, because I've given it access to my desktop folder, anything in my desktop or any nested folders within that, Claude CoWork can modify, move, touch, delete, all of that kind of stuff. So be super careful when you use this, because you cannot just reverse anything that it did. So now that we're on my desktop though, we can run a simple task. Hey, CoWork, can you please reorganize my desktop and just color code the folders and make it a little bit cleaner and easier for me to read and find the information? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead here and just press enter and just see what it's capable of doing. And while it's doing that, we can quickly run through the other features you'll see here. Notice that you get kind of a progress bar at the top where it shows you what it's running through. In this case, it hasn't created like a long plan yet because it's still analyzing what I have. You also get the project you're working inside of, which is my desktop, as well as any instructions. In this case, I haven't specified any. And then you'll have the context that it's using. So if you're adding other files or tools or connectors, you'll see them here. So let's wait for this to finish and then I'll be right back. And as I mentioned, you can change the model down here if you want. Opus is going to use a lot of credits, so keep that in mind. Now, while we wait for CoWork to finish here, this is a great time to tell you about today's sponsor, Storyblocks. Now, when I'm producing videos for this channel, the last thing that I want to be doing is jumping between 5 different sites, hunting for B-roll, background music, sound effects, etc. Storyblocks just fixes that. It's an all-in-one creative toolkit with footage, music, sound effects, templates, all in one place, and they actually save members an average of 3.5 hours a week, and honestly, that tracks for myself and my team. And what I also want to be clear about, and I think this matters, is that the library is 100% human-made. So real filmmakers, real artists from around the world, this is not some random AI-generated footage platform. The footage is professionally shot and produced, which is why it actually looks good in videos and doesn't feel generic. Now, on top of that, they do have AI-powered tools built in to speed up your workflow. So AI video editing powered by Runway and AI voiceover powered by 11 Labs. But those are just tools that work on top of the real footage. They're not replacements, so you stay in full control of the creative. Now, they've also got thousands of templates for Premiere Pro, After Effects, and DaVinci Resolve, which are easy to drop in and easy to customize. To start telling better stories with the tools that I use, head to storyblocks.com/techwithtim, and they're offering 15% off any annual plan for a limited time, and that discount is only available through my link below. Thanks to Storyblocks, now let's get back into it. Okay, so now what Claude is doing is it's just asking me what I want to do with some of the folders that I've got here. So I'm just going to say leave them where they are. It says the color coding. Let's go by category type. And now that I've answered those questions, it should continue and complete the rest. Okay, so it says it's finished. So let's go to the desktop and see. And I mean, that looks pretty good. It doesn't look like it really organized a lot of the files that I have, but at least it color coded them, which is kind of better than what I had before. And well, we're off to a good start using Claude CoWork. Okay, so let's continue now and let's have a look at some more advanced things that we can do and understand how CoWork actually operates. Now, the first thing that you need to understand is that the CoWork sessions that you have are independent and Claude doesn't automatically remember them. What that means is that if I were to create a new task here and I said, what did I just ask you to do? And I didn't work inside of the desktop again, so let's just remove that and just go, what did I ask you to do? You'll see that if I hit enter here, it's probably not going to know. So let's give it a second here to give us a response. And you can see that this is the start of our conversation and it doesn't know what we were doing in the other sessions. So this is different than when you're using the chat window where it can actually pull context from other sessions and automatically remembers things about you. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is that you can fix that problem by working inside of a project. So if you know that you're not just doing a one-off task and that you're going to want to do something multiple times, or you want Claude to remember some specific tasks about the thing that you're asking it to do, then what you're going to want to do is create a new project. So you can press the plus button here where it says projects, or if you go back to new task, you can go here and you can make a new project. So you see I have one called Hello World, but let's make a new one and just go start from scratch and let's just go main or something, okay? And we'll go ahead and press on create. So now that I'm inside of this project, you'll notice that we actually have memory that appears in the right-hand side as an additional view, an additional tab. So now as we start chatting with Claude, even if the conversation gets really large, it's still gonna remember what we were asking it to do previously, so we have all of the context in one session. This is probably the #1 thing you can do to make sure you get a better result, just work inside of a project. So from here, inside of the project, same thing, we can start interacting with Claude, but where this gets super useful is when we start giving it the ability to actually use our browser. So if we go down to the settings here, which we'll be able to access by clicking on our avatar, we can go to settings. So from settings here, if we click into this, there's a few things that we want to look at. Now, first, if we go to the CoWork settings here, we can enable dispatch. This is how you can use it from your phone. So if you go on mobile and you're just on the Claude desktop app on mobile, you can press dispatch and you can dispatch a task to your computer so it can start running. You also can enable global instructions. Now, these are things that you want to follow in all CoWork sessions. So for example, if you wanted to use Microsoft Edge instead of using Chrome, you could tell it that and then it would do that by default. Or actually, that probably doesn't make sense because I think it connects to a Chrome browser extension, which we'll look at in a second. But if you have some preference, you can put it here and then you can delete CoWork sessions as well. Okay, Now, next thing that we want to look at is Claude in Chrome. Now, this is where it gets really powerful because CoWork can automatically actually start managing your browser and doing things inside of there. Now, in order for this to work, you need to install the Claude Chrome extension. So if you just go Claude, it probably will show you in the desktop app, but if you go Claude Chrome extension, if I could type properly, you're going to see we have Claude for Chrome here. Let's give this a second to load. And then what we can do is go add to Chrome, okay? And if we add that to Chrome, we can install the extension. I have it installed right now. Now, once it's installed, what you can do is just select it. So if you go to the extensions and press on Claude, you can start asking it to do something and it will just directly do that inside of your browser. But you don't have to actually tell it to do something from there. As long as you have it enabled and you have that extension configured, you should be able to like pair it from here in CoWork. And then if you go back to one of your tasks, you can say something like, open up my browser, go to YouTube, and tell me 2 of the recommended videos on my home screen. And now if we do that, we can go ahead here, we can go to connectors, make sure that Claude in Chrome is enabled. By default, it should be. And if I press enter here, it should start going and doing that. So I'm just gonna open up my browser just so we can kind of watch it work. And let's see if it opens up YouTube and starts triggering that. Okay, so you can see that it actually just opened another tab here. Let me open this up and you can kind of hide or view what it's doing. So you can see that it's opened up YouTube here and now there's a few videos on my screen, okay? And let's wait a second and see if we get the result, and we get it right away. And it says, I stayed in the worst room at luxury hotels. I tested the most viral TikTok, whatever, kitchen gadgets, you get the idea. Now, if we want this to go a step further, I can say, okay, click into both of those videos and give me all of the stats on them. So what's the views, what are the likes, and what's the sentiment of the first like 10 or 20 comments on those page? I want to see why maybe those are being recommended to me and what the like general information is. Okay. So now it's going to go ahead and do that. And same thing, we can watch it and it should actually click through these different, videos that we have here, and it can actually interact with the page. Okay, so you can see that it's opened this up. I'm just going to mute this here so you don't get the audio, but it just opened that up and then it's opening another browser tab here. Same thing, I'm just going to mute this and you can see Claude is active in this tab group and it's kind of analyzing the content. Now let's go back here and let's wait for the result. Okay, so it just wrapped up here. When I was watching it, it was like scrolling through the page, clicking into different stuff, etc. And you can see that we get all of the stats here in terms of the engagement, the likes, the comments, the general sentiment, and that's super cool. Okay, now going to YouTube and finding some information is kind of like a novel example, but where this gets more useful is when you want it to actually execute some kind of task or workflow for you repetitively. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna actually ask this to search for flights, and I'm gonna wrap this into a skill. I'll talk to you about what that is in a second, and then show it as a scheduled task as well, so I can show you how we can kind of go to the extremes of what Claude CoWork can do. So I'm gonna say, hey, I want you to search Google Flights and find any direct flights or one-stop flights from Miami to Dubai in the next 6 months in business class that are less than $3,000 US. What I'd like you to do is give me a quick report of all of the flights that are available and recommend the top 1 or 2 options that are happening right now. I'd like you to search multiple date ranges and give me a quick report. Okay, so I'm just gonna tell it to do this here. Go ahead and press enter, and let's watch the browser. I'm just curious what this is actually gonna do. Okay, now something interesting here that I should point out is that it's actually running this in parallel. So this is another feature that Claude CoWork has, is that it can actually dispatch tasks to multiple sub-agents. So a sub-agent is just another agent or kind of version of Claude that's running in the background. You can run multiple at the exact same time. So rather than waiting for one search to finish and the next and the next and the next, we could do 6, 20, 30 searches at the exact same time. So Claude will automatically do this for you, but you can also tell it directly, hey, run this in parallel if you want it to run faster. Now, of course, you use more credits, but generally it's actually going to be the same because you're going to have to do the same thing anyway, but just running it in parallel so you get it done faster. Now anyways, what it's done here is it's actually started doing some web search, and we can see that it's searching on like a ton of different pages, and we see all the results that it gets, so 17 different searches that I believe it was running in parallel. Now it says that it's not getting the most accurate stuff, so what it's gonna do now is directly go to the browser to Google Flights and start searching. So let's see, we can have Miami to Dubai. Okay, you can see it's searching through here, it's looking for the various different options, and I believe it's gonna start changing the dates. You can see it just changed that one right there. We've got an Emirates flight, $6,000, a little bit expensive for me. And it'll keep kind of going through this process, opening up this, and like, I'm not touching this right now. My hands are off the keyboard. It is completely controlling my computer. And the interesting thing, and also what to be aware of, is that because it can control this, it can be signed into my account. So I could then tell it like, go book the flight. And if it was an Emirates flight, for example, where I have an account, it would just be able to do that. And it like could charge my credit card or something. So you have to be a little bit careful when you start getting it to do things in the browser, and you definitely want to watch what it's doing because it can sometimes go rogue and some crazy stuff can happen if you don't know what it is that is actually executing. All right, so it just finished here. It did take a second to go through everything. We can see that it was opening up, searching a bunch of different flights. We can also see all of the tool calls that it ran. So you can see what the page looks like, and it gives you kind of like a screenshot on the side of what it was doing. And then it gave us ultimately the final report. So that's kind of the browser use feature, which I think for most people is going to be the biggest unlock and reason to use CoWork on your machine. Again, be very, very careful when using this because it does have access to the same essentially context and history that your Google browser has, which for a lot of you is like your entire life, including myself. So you want to be very, very careful. Now, where this starts to get a little bit more useful is when we start building in things like skills and various other connectors. So you'll see that if I press this plus button here and I go to skills, there's a few options here just in this version of Claude that I have where I have some different skills like connecting to a database, generating a profile for AWS, whatever. And then this skill creator, which I believe comes pre-built into Claude Code or Claude CoWork. Now, a skill is essentially just a markdown file and potentially references to scripts or other resources that allows Claude to repeatably do something. So this kind of run that I've done, right, where I want it to go and search for flights and, find them and tell me if any are cheaper than $3,000, I may want to do this, once every day, or I may want to do this whenever I tell it to do it. Now, I could just come and give it the same prompt again, right, or copy and paste the prompt, but it doesn't guarantee that I'm going to get the same result. So what's better is if we actually tell Claude CoWork to wrap what it just did into a skill, and we give it kind of a step-by-step process on what it is that we want it to do. So we can say, hey, I want you to go search for this. Here's the criteria. Put this into a skill. You can run the skill, test the skill, and slowly refine it. And as soon as Claude did what you actually wanted it to do, you tell it, hey, save that or update the skill, and then it will figure out how to repeatedly do that, put it into this skill, and the next time that you want to do this again, you just reference the skill, and then it will repeat that operation. Now, a skill is not 100%, bulletproof. It still can make mistakes or veer from what you want it to do. But whenever you have something that's very repeatable, a workflow, something that could be documented that maybe you would hand to an employee and say here are steps 1 to 7, that's a really good criteria for telling Claude to turn it into a skill. So if you're like, hey, anytime I get a new email, I want you to determine if it's a receipt or an expense or if it's a payment, and then file it to Google Drive. Same thing, that would make a really good skill because it's something that you're gonna do a lot and that is pretty consistent and has the same process and the same steps. So in order to do that, you can simply just say, hey, turn this into a repeatable, reusable skill that I could run anytime I want to search for flights. Let's not lock it into Dubai to Miami. Let's have it be any 2 cities. And when I run the skill, you ask me for the 2 cities and for the date range, and then you search through Google Flights specifically, and you find the cheapest options and the best recommendations for me in whatever class I suggest. Again, this is not super robust. I'm just doing a random example with you. It makes more sense if you have a repeatable workflow as opposed to searching for flights, but I just want to show you the skill component because it's super powerful. So let's see if it can create the skill now, and then we'll have a look at what the skill actually looks like and how we can use it. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, that took a long time. It was doing a bunch of testing, evaluation, all of these kind of things. And anyways, it eventually created the skill. Let's quickly have a look at it. So if I press this, we can see that the skill is really just a markdown file. So .md, it has all of this nice formatting and just explains step by step exactly what to do. Is designed to be read by Claude, right? So you can write it yourself, but generally describe what you want to do, test it, make sure it works, and then add it to the skills or get it to create the skill, and then iterate on the skill until you've got a really good one. And then those skills kind of build the foundation for a lot of the tasks that you want to run. So what I'm going to do is just press copy to my skills, wait for that to load, and you can see now if I press manage here, we can view all of the different skills, some examples, and then this flight search one has now been added. So now if I wanted to use the skill, let's go here, I can just directly add it, right? So I can go skills, make sure it is, I can press it, which just puts in /flight search, and then I can start asking it to do something and it will do the search. Now, where this gets really useful is when we can actually start adding these to scheduled tasks. So you see if I go to scheduled here, I have one task. Let me just close this. It's a MCP server that I have here. Anyways, I have one task right now where what it does is it goes and it searches my emails and automatically files all of the receipts, expenses, etc. Super useful. It's paused right now, but what I will do is make a new task or a new scheduled task. And I'm going to say this is, flight search. Okay, you can describe what you want, and then you can put the skill in here as well. So you could say slash flight search, right? So we're now going to reuse that skill and then put, hey, I want you to search for flights from Miami to Dubai, you know, in the week of March, I don't know, 29th or something, and tell me any ones that are cheap. And then the frequency you can set weekly, daily, hourly, etc. And then toggle any other options like this, with what model you want to use and the folder or project you want it to work in. Now, because I'm super lazy, I'm just going to tell it to add this for me. Hey, add a scheduled task where we look for flights from Dubai to Miami for under 4,000 US dollars anytime in the next 9 months. And then I'm going to say, run this every day at 10 a.m. Dubai time. Okay, and go ahead and press enter, and now it should just automatically create this for us. This is similar to like a cron job, if you've seen that before, inside of something like OpenClaw. But point is, a lot of this stuff, you don't have to manually do it, just tell Claude to do it, and it will just utilize the feature that already exists. And you can see, okay, it's going to use this skill schedule, which is built into Claude, and should give us a result here. And if we go to scheduled, okay, it's not here yet, but hopefully it will come in 1 second. Okay, so it's now popped this up. I just have to press the button schedule. So I'll go ahead and do that. And if we now go to scheduled, we can see that it's here every day at 2:04 a.m. because it's time zone adjusted to where I am right now. And you can see that it has the skill and what it is that it needs to do. Perfect. Okay, so there we go. We get the description, and then I can test this by running it right now. And you can see, like, here's an example of my other one running, and I can just turn it back on so that it's going to trigger. Now, important thing with the scheduled task, again, Claude Code has to be open and your computer has to be on. If it's not, then it is not going to run. So obviously that's not going to work well. Okay, so those are skills, super useful. Make sure you build them, and that's really how you start building some customization and some capabilities inside of Claude, not just for CoWork, but for the code and chat. And you can also add them to particular workspaces so that they're only loaded in when you load a specific project, if you want it for, like, you know, all of the people on your team for a coding project or something like that. Now, I think the last thing that we can quickly go over is just the idea of connectors and kind of additional functionality. So if you go to customize and you go to connectors, where Claude, for me particularly, gets a lot more useful is when you start adding external capabilities. So you can see, like, I've added Notion, I've added Google Drive, I've added Calendar, I've added Gmail, I've added GitHub. And while if you use CoWork, it can go to your browser and just use these things anyways, it's a lot more efficient and a lot faster if you connect these pre-built connectors. Now, these connectors, you can browse them. There's a ton built in directly to Claude or from this like store here, but it allows CoWork, or really any Claude feature that you're using, to call a tool that goes to this external service and does something. So I tell it, you know, read my email. It doesn't have to actually open my browser and go to Gmail. It will use the Gmail connector, which is typically safer, more secure, and faster, and just much more efficient. So if you're going to be running a lot of these workflows, I highly recommend connecting to the connectors and just set up, you know, spend 30 minutes, set up your Claude, connect to all the data sources that you want, and then go through here and provide the particular permissions. Like in my case, I don't want it to be able to write or delete something, so I blocked that tool. But for everything else that's read-only, I've allowed that. So this gives you a little bit more control than relying on it to use the browser. And remember that if you don't want it to use this, right, what you can do is you can block, for example, the browser extension, or only add specific websites so that it doesn't go rogue and do something that you don't want. So anyways, guys, that is going to wrap up this video. That is a, I guess, relatively in-depth Claude CoWork tutorial. If you want to see more videos like this, definitely let me know. I hope you learned something.
Masterclass, I'm going to take you from absolute beginner to a fully working OpenClaw setup that can actually message you on your phone, remember important context, run automations, and by the end, become a 24/7 AI operator that actually helps you accomplish your goals. And to make this super easy to follow, I've split this masterclass into 3 levels. In level 1, I'm going to show you how to deploy OpenClaw, secure it properly, connect it to your mobile device, and turn it into a real 24/7 AI assistant that can actually message you and help you in your day-to-day life. In level 2, we're going to go deeper. You'll learn what skills are, how memory works, how to connect OpenClaw to real tools like your Gmail or Google Calendar, what are cron jobs and heartbeats, and how to make it do more than just respond. I'll show you how to make it actually work for you and do tasks. And then in level 3, I'll show you how this evolves into something much bigger. We'll talk about local setups, sub-agents, and how you can start connecting OpenClaw into more complex systems like autonomous marketing workflows, or even something like an autonomous app factory, like I have done so myself. Each level is designed so that when you finish it, you won't just understand the concept, you'll have a working prototype you can actually use. That way, I can get progressively more advanced as your own understanding of OpenClaw grows. We're going to cover deployment, security, messaging, skills, memory, automation, model routing, cost control, and finally, how this can evolve into much more complex autonomous systems. And the best part is, you do not need to write a single line of code. So whether you've never touched OpenClaw before, or you already tried setting it up and hit a wall, stay with me. By the end of this video, you will understand not just how to set it up, but why each piece matters, where people go wrong, and how to avoid the mistakes that cost people serious time, money, and security breaches. So grab a pen and paper and make sure to take notes, because by the end, you'll have your own AI assistant running 24/7, messaging you on your phone and actually doing things for you, not just sitting there waiting for you to prompt it. So let's start with the big question. What actually is OpenClaw? Most AI tools are places you go to. You open ChatGPT, you open Claude, you open Gemini, you type something in, it helps you, then you leave. But OpenClaw is different. With tools like ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini, you ask a question and get an answer. But with OpenClaw, you give it a go and it can go off and work toward a result. That is the shift. ChatGPT gives you answers, OpenClaw gives you outcomes. Instead of you always going to it, it comes to you. It's less like a chatbot and more like the foundation for a real AI assistant. The easiest way to understand OpenClaw is through 3 pillars: brain and memory. This is the intelligence layer. It connects to AI models. It reads your files, it stores context, and over time, it can build a more persistent understanding of who you are, how you like to work, and what matters to you. Always on runtime. Unlike a normal chat tab, OpenClaw can stay running 24/7. That means it can monitor, react, schedule, and continue operating even when you're not sitting in front of your computer. Tools and actions. This is where things get interesting. OpenClaw can connect to things like Telegram, Discord, Google Workspace, web search, and more. So it's not just giving you text responses, it can actually take action. And once you understand those 3 pillars, you stop thinking of OpenClaw as another AI app and start seeing it for what it really is, a personal AI operating layer. And this is exactly why big companies like NVIDIA and OpenAI are so interested in OpenClaw, because in just a few weeks, OpenClaw has surpassed what Linux has tried to do for over 30 years. Here's a few real-world examples.
I use OpenClaw to watch my inbox for urgent client emails and send me a clean summary in Slack, so I'm not checking my email every 20 minutes.
I use it to monitor big launches, product drops, and restaurant booking windows, then alert me the second something becomes available.
Or if you create content like me, you could have it collect ideas throughout the week, organize them, and send you a draft content plan every Monday morning. That's the difference. Not just answering questions, actually working for you. And the beautiful part is that OpenClaw can live where you already live. Instead of needing to go to a website every single time, it can show up in Telegram, Discord, Slack, and other places you already use. That makes it feel less like a tool you open and more like a system that is already around you. Now, I actually had a bit of a breakthrough myself recently when I picked up this book by Tim Ferriss. Many of you have probably heard of it. It's called The 4-Hour Work Week. And one of the main takeaways from this book is to outsource your labor to a virtual assistant. The idea is simple. You pay someone in a third world country $5 to $15 an hour to handle tedious tasks for you. In this book, to demonstrate how powerful of a productivity hack a virtual assistant actually is, Tim Ferriss begins listing out all of these things he gets his assistant to do. Scheduling interviews, ordering groceries based on a diet plan, getting an authenticated weather report for a specific place and time 5 years earlier to support a lawsuit. Now, as he's listing out the tasks, I start to think to myself, hang on a second, OpenClaw can actually do all of these tasks. But before we get into the fun stuff, we need to answer one very practical question. Where do you actually run this thing? So there are 3 main ways to run your OpenClaw. Option 1 is your personal computer. This is the easiest place to start. If you already have a laptop or desktop, you can run OpenClaw on that right away. It's cheap, accessible, and great for learning the basics or experimenting. The downside is that it usually isn't ideal for a serious always-on setup. If your laptop sleeps, OpenClaw stops. If you shut it down, OpenClaw stops. And depending on how you configure things, you're also mixing your agent with your normal personal environment, which some people won't love from a security or organization standpoint. So this is a great option for testing and getting familiar with OpenClaw, just not usually the best for a long-term setup if you want something running 24/7. Now, option 2 is spare hardware or a Mac Mini. This is personally my preferred setup, and it's what I use for my OpenClaw. A dedicated machine gives you much better isolation, better uptime, and a lot more control, while still keeping everything under your own roof. It also becomes a very strong option if you want to go deeper later on and start running local AI models. Because with your own hardware, you could upgrade over time, add more power, add more memory, and shape the machine around what you actually want to do. The trade-off is upfront cost. It can take a bit more effort to set up, but if you want control, flexibility, and the best path into local AI long-term, this is probably the strongest option. And I'll talk more about this setup in level 3. Option 3 is a VPS or cloud server. A VPS is basically a computer in the cloud. It runs 24/7, it's separate from your personal machine, and for a lot of people, it's a very practical way to get OpenClaw online quickly. The reason I like it for level 1 is not because it's the best setup overall, but because it's a simple way to get a beginner-friendly, always-on setup without needing to buy extra hardware first. So if your goal is to get OpenClaw live quickly, keep it running 24/7, separate it from your personal laptop, and follow along easily, then a VPS makes a lot of sense. Where a VPS becomes less ideal is if you want to go really deep on local models or build a heavier long-term hardware stack. At this point, dedicated local hardware usually gives you more flexibility. So for this masterclass, I'm going to use a VPS in level 1 because it's a simple and approachable way to get started fast. Then later in level 3, I'll talk about why local hardware becomes really interesting once you want more control and more advanced setups. Now, I want to stress, this isn't a one-size-fits-all situation. I've seen some people ride or die for local Mac Mini setups and others who stand by a VPS. This tutorial is balanced. I personally use local hardware, but I can totally see someone being uncomfortable with having their OpenClaw and their personal files in the same place. And a local setup might be too expensive, so using a VPS makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. For our VPS setup, I'm using Hostinger because it's one of the easier beginner-friendly options. The dashboard is simple, setup is straightforward, and it's a good fit if you don't have a technical background like myself. When I first set up OpenClaw through AWS, I ran into a lot of problems, and ultimately it ended up taking me 2 hours on my first try. Hostinger is like 3 buttons. It's super easy, but there's a few things you need to take note of. Let me show you. First thing you want to do is you want to create an account. So go ahead and go to My Account and sign up and just fill in your details like you normally would. You could also just register with your Google account. So once you're in here, you're going to have the option of picking your own server. So here's a rule of thumb. If you just want a clean basic setup that mostly uses API models, start small and use the KVM2 plan. If you plan to run a lot of skills and heavier workflows, give yourself more headroom with the KVM4 plan. If you want to run local models like Ollama on the same server, then you'll need significantly more RAM, and I probably would just go for a more local setup anyway. But think of it like this. Basic assistant setup equals KVM2. More skills and more activity is KVM4. And if you want to run local AI models, go for KVM8. So since we're on level 1 of this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and click KVM2. So now you got a few options here. You got 24 months at just $9 a month, 12 months for 1 month. Now, if you're planning to use OpenClaw long term, I'd recommend going for something like 12 months. You get a huge discount. And if you use the link in the description, you also get an additional 10% off. Now let's scroll down. I'd tick this off because we're going to show you later how you can bring in your own AI. Instant web scraping, honestly, it's free, so just tick it. And then the last thing I want to mention is this right here. I highly recommend enabling automatic backups for snapshots because if something breaks later, having a restore point can save you a massive headache. Now I'm going to go ahead and click continue. put in your details. Now, once you put in your payment details, it's going to look something like this. Don't worry about these two for now. We're going to deal with that later. Just go ahead and click deploy. Now, once the server is ready, you go through your Docker or project setup flow. There's usually like a server here. You can just skip it. This is where you want to be careful with one very important slide. The very first thing I recommend you do is type hello. This kicks off the bootstrap or hatching process. And this part matters more than people think, because OpenClaw is going to ask you questions like, who am I? Who are you? What should I call you? What time zone are you in? How do you like to work? A lot of people rush through this. My 2 cents is don't. Because the more thoughtful you are here, the less generic your OpenClaw will feel. This is the one biggest difference between OpenClaw and regular AI chat tools. With normal chat tools, you often start from scratch every time. With OpenClaw, you're building an actual working context layer. Now, if you've been using AI agents like ChatGPT or Google's Gemini for more than a few months, chances are it already knows quite a lot about you. So I actually made a prompt that you can paste into whichever AI you use the most, and it should give you a clean data packet of information it already knows about you, your work, your preferences, and your context. Then you can just paste that straight into OpenClaw to help it understand who you are much faster. Here's the prompt. Just screenshot this and paste it into your AI chat. This will save a ton of time and give your OpenClaw a much deeper understanding of who you are right from the beginning. And trust me, this part pays off later, because the more accurate the foundation is, the better the system behaves. Now, one quick troubleshooting note before we continue. If your bot ever suddenly stops responding, one of the first things to check is whether you hit a rate limit or ran out of credits. Check your model provider dashboard before you waste time debugging the wrong thing. Now that the bot is alive, we need to do something that almost every beginner skips: security. Before we connect Telegram, before we install skills, before we give this thing access to anything meaningful, we need to lock it down. OpenClaw is powerful. That's the whole reason people want it. But that also means security is not optional. If you ignore this part, you're basically giving a very capable system access to tools and hoping nothing weird happens. This is not a strategy. So here's the simplest way to think about this. The more power your agent has, the more important your guardrails are. And this is not just theoretical. I saw one example where someone's OpenClaw agent was browsing the web and landed on a page that had hidden text embedded into it. A human looking at the page wouldn't notice anything strange, but the AI could still read it. And that hidden text was basically trying to manipulate the agent into downloading malicious data and handing over its authority to the website owner. That is exactly why security matters so much with agents. They don't just read what you see, they can also act on instructions you never even realized were there. So we're going to lock down the basics right now. So OpenClaw has its own security documentation. So what you can do is literally copy the security page URL, paste it straight into the OpenClaw chat, and say something like, implement and verify everything on this page. Bruh. Now we can just sit here and watch it harden parts of its own setup in real time, which is honestly pretty insane. You can see OpenClaw has given us a nice little security review. It's given issues found in our setup, strengths, immediate fixes it can do right now. It's honestly great. And just like that, within seconds, your OpenClaw is already more secure than 80% of setups out there. Now make sure to add behavioral guardrails. Tell your bot things like always draft messages before sending on my behalf, always ask before deleting files, always ask before making external network requests, always ask before using sensitive tools. This is the principle of least privilege. Only give the agent the permissions and freedom it actually needs. Also make sure to add failure limits. This prevents runaway behavior and overnight disasters. Add rules like if a task fails 3 times, stop. Don't let tasks run indefinitely. Cap long tasks at 10 minutes unless explicitly approved otherwise. That one alone can save people from some of the nightmare stories I've seen on Reddit where someone's agent got stuck on a task and burned through $400 overnight. Now, a rule of thumb, do not connect everything on day one. Start with one channel, start with 1 or 2 safe experiments, get comfortable, and then expand. Do not immediately connect your primary email, your financial tools, your password manager, and your whole digital life just because you can. If there is one thing I want you to take seriously from this video, it's this. Do not leave powerful agent infrastructure casually exposed to public internet if you don't have to. The easiest high leverage move here is to make your setup private. That's where Tailscale comes in. Tailscale creates a private encrypted network between your devices. So instead of exposing your OpenClaw dashboard broadly, you can access it through a secure private tunnel. This is a massive security upgrade. Instead of your OpenClaw just sitting there as another visible target on the open internet, this will make it invisible. And the setup is surprisingly straightforward. The first thing you want to do is install Tailscale on whatever device you plan to talk to your OpenClaw through. This could be your laptop, desktop, or mobile phone. I'm going to go ahead and install it on my MacBook. Once it's downloaded, go ahead and click open and confirm any permissions that it needs. You should see these 9 dots up here, just click it. Go to settings, account, add account, and this will open up a tab on your browser. Now just create an account. Once you've created your account, it's gonna ask to connect whatever device you signed in with. For me, it's my MacBook Pro. Just go ahead and press connect. And there you are, you're in. Once you've done that, head on back to your hosting or manager and go ahead and click this terminal icon. We need to add Tailscale to our OpenClaw server now. Now I know this might look scary, but don't panic. You literally just need to paste in 2 commands, okay? The first one is this one, and this is going to install Tailscale. Now once it's installed, it's gonna say this word right here, Tailscale up. Just go ahead and copy that and then paste it into the chat. This is your next command. And now it's going to give you this link. If you copy this link and in the same browser where you first connected your last Tailscale device, just paste it in, it'll give you the new server to connect to your network. Go ahead and hit connect and you're in. And now you can access the server through your private Tailscale network. Feel free to repeat this step with all your other devices you plan to access OpenClaw through, like your mobile device. Once you're done, you will be in the top 99% of secure setups. Now let's do the part that makes this instantly useful in your day-to-day life, connecting it to your phone. Telegram is one of the easiest and most satisfying ways to use OpenClaw because the moment this thing starts messaging you on your phone, the whole concept just clicks. So here's how to do it. Open Telegram and then message botfather. Then run /new bot. And now you need to give your bot a name. Mine's called Dobby. Now you need to give it a username with the word bot at the end. So mine will be Dobby OpenClaw bot. Cool, looks like that's taken. Let's go Dobby DoobieBot. Botfather will generate a token, and once again, same rule as always, treat that token like a password. Copy it and give it to your OpenClaw. Once that's done, you should get some sort of confirmation saying Telegram is on. If you don't, just prompt your OpenClaw and it should come around the second time. Now what you want to do is go back to Botfather and click this link to your OpenClaw bot. Press start and then just copy the context of this message and paste it back into your OpenClaw chat, and this will configure everything. This is like the authentication token to connect them together. Once that's done, you'll get another confirmation message. Just go back to Telegram and send hello. And there it is. Your OpenClaw assistant is now talking to you through Telegram. This is your first big win. And one cool thing here is that you can often see separate sessions happening in parallel. So your dashboard session and your Telegram session can exist at the same time. OpenClaw supports multiple messaging platforms. Telegram is just the easiest place to start. Later in level 3, I'm going to show you why Discord becomes really interesting once you start building more complex workflows. But for now, you already have something really useful. You have a secure, always-on AI assistant that lives on your phone. And most people never make it this far. But this is just level 1. Now we need to turn this from a cool AI assistant into something that can actually do real work. Before we go into level 2, if you're finding the video helpful, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. My goal for this video is 7 likes. So if we can hit 7 likes, I will be forever grateful and it will motivate me more than you will ever know. So now let's talk about skills. Skills are what take OpenClaw from being a bot that you can chat with to a system that can actually help you do things. The easiest way to think about a skill is like a plugin. A skill gives your bot a new capability. Want it to interact with Gmail? That's a skill. Want it to read your calendar? That's a skill. Want it to search the web? That can be a skill too. This is where the system becomes genuinely useful. But it is also one of the biggest security danger zones, because installing a skill is not like installing a harmless little app. You are potentially adding code, permissions, access, and execution paths to a powerful agent that you own. So before I show you where to find skills, I need to make something very clear. A high download count does not automatically mean a skill is safe. Just recently, one of the most downloaded skills was found to have malware inside of it. So as a rule of thumb, read what the skill does, read what permissions it needs, check whether the permissions make sense, and ask your bot to inspect the code before installing it. Avoid anything that feels over-permissioned or suspicious. Like for example, if a simple note-taking skill is asking for broad network access or weird command execution, that should make you pause immediately. So where do you actually get skills? Usually from the official skill marketplace called Claude. And once you're inside, you'll see some of the popular skills, featured skills, and searchable options. One of the first skills a lot of people want is access to Gmail, Calendar, Drive, Docs, and Sheets. Because the moment OpenClaw can interact with your actual workflow, it becomes dramatically more useful. So let's walk through that. First, you need to find the Google Workspace skill. You can either search it through ClawHub or just prompt your OpenClaw to find it for you. Now, before installing it, do the obvious safety check. Ask OpenClaw to inspect it. Ask whether the permissions make sense. Once you're comfortable, go ahead and install it. Now, this is the part where many people get stuck. Installing the skill is not the hard part. The authorization is actually the hard part. So here's the process. Go over to Google Console, and you're gonna have to set a few things up. Now, this is pretty complicated, so I'll run you through it, but you need to create a new project. Give it a name or just use whatever they've provided. And then you're going to search up APIs and services. And then here you need to go to library and you actually need to connect all the things that you want your OpenClaw to have access to. So for example, Gmail, you got to click on it and then you need to enable it. I've already enabled it, but you also got to do it with everything. So for another one would be like Docs. Got to go on here and hit enable. And this is a bit tedious, I'm not gonna lie, but you just got to do it for like everything. Sheets, and you don't have to pick like things that you're not using, but it's also good to just do it once and never have to worry about it again. You know, like imagine having to go through this process again. Like just get it over with. What else is there? That's kind of it, right? Oh yeah, and calendar. Can't forget calendar. Okay, now, once we've got them all set up, we're not actually done yet. Let's go to OAuth and then hit audience. And then scroll down here to add user. Put in your email address, save. Should show up down here. What you're gonna do now is go to credentials. And then up here, you're gonna go create credential. And then OAuth client. Give it a name. Make sure it's a desktop app. You can name this whatever, just like OpenClaw access or whatever. Create. And then you need to download this JSON, and either in here or you could do it in your chat as well. It doesn't really matter. Just give it the JSON file and just be like,
Here is the JSON file for all of the data that you need and keys for the GOG skill you just installed.
Now, if all goes smoothly, you will be provided with a link. You just need to click that link and everything should be set up. Yep, right here. The only remaining step will be the one-time account auth in browser. Boom. And then it's going to ask for your Gmail. So e-commerce maxi@gmail.com. This is my testing email. Don't laugh at the username. Boom. Expect it to be a very long URL. Just click it. It's going to take you to this portal. Just sign in like you would. It's going to ask you, like, you've been access to this app. Make sure you know the developer that invited you. At this point, obviously, you are the developer yourself. So hit continue. Select all. You want to give it access to everything. And this is an expected thing to see, okay? This shouldn't be working. So what you actually need to do now is you need to copy this link and just paste it into your chat. And done. This should work. It's asking for a passphrase, but I never set one. And boom, just like that, we're in. Nice, it's connected. Let's do a quick little test.
Thought she was moving.